Hi, we're Quentin Curious Volumes. My name is James. Today is, well, it doesn't matter what day it is, does it? Because I'm going to be talking to you about Marcel Proust. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the sixth book of In Search of Lost Time, which is called The Fugitive. An earlier edition of the Moncrief translation had it as The Sweet Cheat Gone, which is, I think you'll agree, a more colorful title, but here it is rendered as The Fugitive. It's sort of a companion to Volume 5, the Book 5, The Captive or The Prisoner. So at the end of The Captive, Albertine, the narrator's girlfriend, has left. She had been living sort of as a what you might call a kept woman, staying in his house in Paris, kind of secretly, in fact, so that her reputation would be preserved, and so that people wouldn't know she was there, because the narrator is exceptionally jealous and does not want her having any liaisons with other men or women. And so at the end of The Captive, she leaves. She leaves him. He had, at various points in The Captive, been thinking, I should break things off with Albertine. I don't really love her anymore. And then she leaves him before he gets a chance to do that. And he is absolutely devastated by this. So much of the fugitive is about his grief over the end of this affair, and so he decides, since she's left, that he's even more insanely jealous, and he wants to marry Albertine now, and sends his old friend Robert de Saint Loup to the town where Albertine is staying, to try and find her and convince her to go back to him. Um, but be cool about it. Don't tell her I said for you to, right? So, and there's an interesting scene where the narrator shows Saint Loup a picture of her so he can recognize her. And Saint Loup is, expecting, because he's been hearing about this woman who his friend, the narrator, is so in love with, and he sees the picture. He's like, "Oh, okay, that's her, huh? Okay, cool. Yeah, all right." So, presumably he doesn't think that she is all that attractive, but we find out some things about Robert later on, about why maybe he's not so interested in Albertine. But so he goes off. He's on his little mission. Albertine writes a telegram to the narrator, explaining, that she'll always have fond memories of him, but she just had to go. At a certain point, I think she sends him a telegram that's something like, "Hey, I saw your friend Robert de Saint Loup around town. Didn't have anything to do with you, did it?" And he's like, "How? Why would I do that? What? I don't have to listen to these preposterous allegations." Um, and Saint Loup telegrams him that he's having trouble figuring this whole thing out. Um, and then Albertine writes to him and says, "Let's get back together." And then immediately after, he gets another telegram from Albertine, or not from Albertine, from someone else saying, Albertine has been killed in a horse riding accident. So he kind of goes from this peak to this low very, very quickly, and he realizes new levels of grieving for this relationship. Now, look, if you've had a disappointment in love, as you probably have, a lot of the stuff about his despair, and his obsessiveness and his going over and over things is going to be familiar to you. And it's Proust, so it's extremely well written, very well rendered, very kind of insightful. But I mean, it does go on for quite some time. Um, after she dies, I mean, it is kind of tragic, but his jealousy kind of takes a different turn. He's always had this weird suspicion of her that she's a Gomorrite, a lesbian, that she loves women, and he contacts Albertine's friend Andre. Andre's I might not be pronouncing it exactly, but Andre is a female, and at a certain point, I think he tells Albertine that he's going to marry Andre to make her jealous. This was in a previous book. Anyway, and he's hanging out with Andre, and he's trying to get her to admit that Albertine and her fooled around together, and Andre's like, well, I mean, I'm into chicks, but she wasn't. She thought it was wrong. And then at another point, she's like, well, yeah, Albertine was into chicks too, and I think maybe she's like, yeah, we fooled around also. And the narrator is like, I've got a great idea. How about I hire a prostitute and the two of you fool around the way that you and Albertine used to, and I can watch? For some reason, Andre is not too keen on this idea. I don't know quite what our narrator was expecting, but he does more poking around. He finds out that she had possibly been having relations with laundry girls, and this is Albertine we're talking about, and that Albertine and Charles Morel, the violinist who has been having an affair with Baron de Charlus, that they would have these weird, I don't know, the kind of sexual evenings with various young women that they would pick up, and they would watch each other fool around. Just so, and then there's a call back to something from the very beginning of The Captive, where he comes in, where the narrator is coming home to Albertine, and Andre is on her way out, and the narrator is carrying some syringas, which is a flower, and she's like, "Oh, I can't stand the smell of that flower. I gotta go." And apparently, on that evening, she was just trying to get out because she and Albertine had been in the process of fooling around when he came in. And anyway, so everything's getting undone. It's kind of hard to tell what exactly is the truth because so many people have kind of played both sides of things. Uh, but anyway, it does at times get a little wearing, I have to admit. After a while, he does have some other successes. He publishes his first article, I think, in the Figaro, which is a newspaper or a magazine that everyone is reading. And there's kind of an amusing scene where he gets the edition and he looks and he's like, someone's written an article on the same topic that I did, and they've used my name. And then he realizes, yeah, he's been published. So yeah, and that becomes a bit of a sensation in his social group because he's had this little success. Um, and then he and his mother go to Venice, and if you remember, the narrator has wanted to go to Venice for a long time. Um, oh wait, we have to talk about, before I get to Venice, we have to talk about Mademoiselle de Forcheville, uh, or de Forcheville, who is one of a trio of women that he sees in the park, in the Bois de Boulogne. And she catches his eye. She looks back at him, and he starts making inquiries around about who this is. It turns out that it is Mademoiselle de Forcheville, who is the daughter of Monsieur Swann and Odette from remember from the first volume. This is also Gilbert, Gilbert with an E, but Gilbert, who was his playmate as a young person and his first love. So he's encountering her again. She is grown. She has Swan. We know has died and left her some money. So what was the deal? So she is adopted by a man named Forcheville who leaves her a lot of money. So Gilbert is now a a wealthy young woman, um, and uh, and they kind of they don't renew their any sort of romantic association, but they renew their friendship. And this is part of his getting over his grief for Albertine. And also, Andre gets engaged to the nephew of the Verdurins, who is a family we read about earlier, who is also some kind of a creative artist who is is quite successful, although the narrator and he do not get along. Okay, so then as another piece of his recovery, the narrator and his mother go to Venice. The This narrator is, he's an aesthete. He likes the theater. He likes music. He loves fine painting and architecture. So they go to Venice, which he can do now that he doesn't have Albertine. He doesn't have to watch over Albertine, right? And make sure she's not fooling around. He didn't do a good job of that, apparently. Anyway, so by the way, there's spoilers for Marcel Proust's The Fugitive. Okay, so he goes to Venice with his mother, and he sees all these great works of art and things that he had learned about from Swann and from Bergotte and all the other artists and writers that he knew back in France. He sees the Giotto Chapel in Padua, which Swann, way back in the early days of his life, had told him about and given him little reproductions of some of the figures in there. And then his mother says, "We need to go back to Paris." For some reason, there's some mucking about where he's like, "Well, you go, I'm staying here." And then at the last minute, he's like, "Okay, I'm going to go." And they get on the train together, and they're reading these telegrams that they've gotten before they left. One of them, for some reason, he thinks is from Albertine, saying she's still alive and she wants to get married. But then it turns out that it was actually from Gilbert, who's saying that she's getting married to Robert de Saint Loup, the narrator's old friend, who is a cavalry officer. Um, I'm not sure how I've never gotten a telegram, so I don't know how you misinterpret telegrams like that. But there you go. And then we find out some things about Saint Loup in this book. For one, he overhears Saint Loup talking to one of the servants about how the servant could sort of undermine a fellow servant and get him kicked out of his job for no reason, and it leads him to sort of have a bit of a jaundiced view of his old friend. Then at the end of this, we find out that Saint Loup also was having some sexual liaisons with Charles Morel, the violinist who had an affair with the Baron de Charlotte. So Morel is really getting around. We're finding out that so many people are secretly gay, and now we know that Robert de Saint Loup also secretly gay, although he's getting married to Gilbert. We also learn, and there are, because this was not completed at the time of Proust's death, so there are some sort of strands left hanging. We do learn that he will, at a certain point, die, apparently pretty soon, and leave Gilbert a widow, but with a child. So I think they have a son, perhaps. That's right. There's a lot of going back and forth in this book. I have to say I'm glad that I'm coming to the end because it's beginning to get a bit tiresome. But so much of this so well written. His prose is excellent. His paragraphs are as long as ever. I'm looking forward to completing the seventh volume, Time Regained. I will tell you all about that. I'm 4 pages into it. So, maybe in 3 months I'll be done. No, I read faster than that, but still. So, do I recommend that you just pick up the Fugitive and read it? No, But if you've read The Captive, you may as well read The Fugitive, and if you've read The Fugitive, you may as well read Time We're Going. Okay. So anyway, that's that's I guess my reaction. Not much of a review, but a reaction to The Fugitive by Marcel Proust. I will say thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.